This story is titled, When I Discovered My Fiancée's Hidden Prenup Changes, I Canceled Our Wedding and Took Back Every Gift. Hey Reddit, I'm a 31-year-old male, and I really need to get this off my chest. This situation has been eating at me for weeks now, and I know this is going to be a long story, but I'm still trying to process everything that happened. It all started with my fiancée Natalie, who's 27. We had been together for 3 years and engaged for the last 8 months. Everything seemed perfect until about 2 months ago when things started feeling different between us. Some background about me. I own a chain of organic grocery stores. I started with one tiny shop in a not-so-great location 10 years ago. Everyone told me I was crazy to try to compete with the big supermarkets, but I had this vision of creating something different, places where people could get quality organic food without spending their whole paycheck. Those first few years were absolutely brutal. I'm talking about sleeping on a mattress in my office some nights because I couldn't afford both rent and keeping the store running. I dealt with suppliers who wouldn't take me seriously, equipment breaking down when I could barely afford repairs, and the constant struggle of trying to convince customers to give this new little store a chance. I worked my butt off day and night, and eventually, that one store became 2, then 5. Now we've got 12 locations across 3 states. I'm not trying to brag here. I'm just explaining why what happened next hit me so hard. When Natalie and I first started talking about marriage, I was totally upfront and transparent about wanting a prenuptial agreement. It wasn't because I didn't trust her. It was about protecting something I had literally poured my entire life into building. She seemed to understand completely. She would say things like, "I understand how hard you worked for this, and I respect that you want to protect your business." She even told her friends that I was being really fair about everything. And I genuinely was trying to be fair. I made sure she'd always have security no matter what happened. I set up a savings account in her name, gave her an emergency credit card for anything she needed, and made sure the prenup wasn't just about protecting me. It was fair to both of us. I never wanted her to feel trapped or like she had nothing to fall back on. I wanted her to feel safe with or without me. But then things started changing between us. It was subtle at first. She'd make these little comments about how married couples should share everything, or she'd send me links to articles about couples who split everything 50-50ths, even their businesses. I didn't think much of it at the time. Everyone gets nervous about marriage stuff, right? Then she started asking more questions about the business. Not normal curious questions, but weird specific ones about profit margins and expansion plans. She'd never cared about those details before. She began sitting in when I was having phone calls with my business partners, pretending to just be hanging out, but clearly listening to everything being discussed. The real weird part started when Natalie began talking about how she wanted to contribute to the business. Mind you, Natalie's background is in social media marketing for small clothing brands. There's nothing wrong with that, but she had never shown any interest in grocery store operations before. Suddenly, she was talking about wanting an office at our headquarters and suggesting she should oversee our social media strategy. I started noticing other changes too. She used to be super independent about money, always insisting on paying her share of date nights and buying her own stuff. But lately, she had been putting everything on our shared card. I'm talking about $600 shopping trips at Bloomingdale's, fancy spa days, and expensive workout classes. When I gently brought it up, she got defensive and said, "Well, we're getting married anyway, right? What's yours is mine." I kept telling myself I was overthinking things. Maybe she was just excited about the wedding. Maybe she really did want to be more involved in the business. But something in my gut wasn't sitting right. Then last week happened. I was going through some paperwork in my home office when I found it. A copy of our prenup agreement. Except it wasn't the same one we had discussed with our lawyers. Not even close. This version had all these extra sections about profit sharing, business ownership stakes, and how she'd be entitled to half of everything, including future expansions, even if we got divorced after just a year. I must have read it 20 times, each time thinking maybe I was misunderstanding something. But nope, someone had clearly made major changes to our agreement. I remembered how Natalie had casually mentioned she was having a lawyer friend look over the paperwork. Turns out she did way more than just look it over. All I could think of at that moment was that the Natalie I fell in love with would never do something like this. She was always so supportive of my business, always proud of what I'd built. Now I was wondering if I ever really knew her at all. After finding the modified prenup, I spent like 2 hours just sitting in my office trying to calm down. I kept reading through the changes, and guys, it was worse than I initially thought. Not only did she add stuff about getting half of my current stores, But she also snuck in clauses about future expansions. There was even something about getting a percentage of online sales. We don't even have online sales yet. It's just in the planning phase. I called Natalie and asked her to come over, trying to keep my voice normal. But she must have sensed something was up because she started asking if everything was okay. I told her we needed to talk about some paperwork, and she said she'd be over in an hour. That hour was the longest of my life. I laid out both versions of the prenup on my desk. The original one we agreed on, and this new version. I also pulled up my bank statements showing all her recent spending. When Natalie arrived, she was wearing this fancy new blazer I'd never seen before. I found out later it was a $900 purchase from just last week. She walked in all confident, giving me a kiss like everything was normal. But as soon as she saw the papers on my desk, her whole attitude changed. I started really calm. I just held up both versions of the prenup and asked, "Can you explain why these are different?" She tried playing dumb at first, saying she didn't know what I was talking about. So I got specific, pointing out the new clauses about profit sharing, the expansion rights, everything. You want to know what she said? She looked me straight in the face and said, "Oh, those? They're just standard protections. Any smart person would have them in their prenup." Standard protections? I've been in the grocery business for 10 years. I know tons of other store owners. None of them have prenups giving their spouses rights to future business expansions. That's not a thing. I pointed to the clause about her getting decision-making power in the company and asked her what she knew about running grocery stores. She got all defensive, saying she's been learning about the business and how she deserves a say in our future. The thing is, Natalie's never worked in retail or anything close to it. She's been doing social media for small fashion brands, making Instagram posts about dresses and stuff. Nothing wrong with that, but it's totally different from managing grocery store chains. She's never dealt with produce suppliers, inventory systems, or store operations. Then she started with this whole speech about how I clearly don't trust her and how she's just trying to protect herself. She actually said, "What if you decide to leave me after I've invested years in this marriage? I need security." I tried explaining that the original prenup already gave her plenty of security. It included a generous settlement that would let her live comfortably, plus it increased based on how long we were married. But apparently that wasn't enough. She kept going on about how times are different now, and modern marriages are partnerships, which would be fine if she'd actually been partnering with me in the business. But she hasn't. She's never once asked to learn about operations or inventory, never showed interest in the actual work, just started demanding ownership rights out of nowhere. The conversation got really heated when I brought up her recent spending. $900 blazer, $1,200 for a wellness retreat weekend, $2,000 at some designer boutique, all in the last month. Her response, "Well, I need to look professional if I'm going to be part of the business." That's when I lost it a little and said, "Natalie, you're not part of the business. You've never been part of the business. Changing legal documents behind my back doesn't make you part of the business." She started crying, saying I was being mean and unfair. She said she just wanted us to be true partners and asked why I was making such a big deal about small changes to the prenup. Small changes? Trying to secretly get half of someone's business isn't a small change. That's like saying painting your house a different color while you're on vacation is a small change. The whole thing ended with her storming out, saying she needed time to think, and that I clearly didn't value her enough. She's been staying at her parents' house since then. I talked to my lawyer, and he said the changes aren't valid since I never agreed to them. But he's worried about what other documents Natalie might try to modify before the wedding. After that fight about the prenup, Natalie kept texting me these long messages about how I was being unreasonable. "I can't believe you're being like this," her message read. "I thought you trusted me. All these years together, and this is how you act over a few small changes." My fingers hovered over the keyboard as I typed my response. "Trust goes both ways, Natalie. You altered legal documents without telling me. How is that okay? They're just small changes," she replied. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then another message popped up. That's when she dropped the bomb. "Kevin said every smart woman does this before marriage. At least someone is looking out for my interests." I sat back in my office chair, pinching the bridge of my nose. Kevin. Of course. Her brother, who had drifted back into town 3 months ago, trailing the debris of 3 failed marriages and a resume of 6-month jobs like toilet paper stuck to his shoe. Before I could respond, my office door burst open. Megan, my assistant, rushed in behind Natalie, her face flushed. I'm so sorry, sir. I told her you were in the middle of... Natalie stood in the doorway, her blonde hair disheveled, eyes blazing. Across from my desk, my biggest supplier turned in his chair with raised eyebrows. We need to talk about this now, Natalie announced, her voice echoing off the windows. You can't just ignore me because you're mad about the prenup. The color drained from my face. Natalie, I'm in a meeting. Oh, I'm sorry, she said, not sounding sorry at all. Am I interrupting business? She spat the word like it was poison. I turned to the client, who was already gathering his papers. I am so sorry about this. Perhaps we could reschedule for tomorrow? After he left, I closed the door and turned to Natalie. What were you thinking? You can't just burst into business meetings. She tossed her purse onto a chair. Oh, so now I can't even come to my future business? Kevin says I need to start asserting myself more. The mention of her brother's name made my jaw clench. This isn't your business, Natalie. And why are you taking advice from Kevin? He's never run anything successful in his life. Don't you dare talk about my brother like that. She stepped closer, jabbing a finger at my chest. He's been through divorces. He knows how men like you operate. I stepped back, stunned. Men like me? What's that supposed to mean? You know exactly what it means, she crossed her arms. Businessmen who think they can control everything with money. Kevin told me all about guys like you. I just stood there, unaware of the woman standing in front of me. Is she the same one I fell in love with? Kevin says I should be on all the bank accounts before the wedding, she declared. He says that's the only way to make sure you don't hide money from me. I stared at her, trying to reconcile this person with the Natalie I knew 3 months ago. The independent woman who supported my dreams, who laughed at my bad jokes, who never needed anyone to tell her what to think. Natalie, I said softly, the original prenup already guarantees you'll be taken care of. Why isn't that enough? Her eyes flashed. Taken care of? I'm not some charity case. I deserve half of everything. Kevin says that's what courts usually give wives anyway. But you haven't contributed to building this business, I said, immediately regretting my words. You've never even worked here. I've been supporting you emotionally. She paced the office like a caged animal. That counts for something. And once we're married, I'm going to be crucial to the business. How? You don't know anything about running grocery stores. I can learn. Her voice cracked slightly. Kevin says I'm smart enough to run any business. He says you're just trying to keep me dependent on you. I sank into my chair, suddenly exhausted. She was speaking with Natalie's voice, but the words were all Kevin's. I tried one last time. Can we talk about this without bringing up what Kevin says? Why are you so threatened by my brother? She leaned over my desk. Just because he's warning me about how these things usually go. I'm not threatened by Kevin. I'm concerned you're taking life advice from someone who's failed at everything he's tried. The silence that followed was deafening. Natalie's face turned red, then purple. How dare you? She grabbed her purse, hands shaking. Kevin has been nothing but supportive. He's the only one telling me the truth about how to protect myself. You're just mad because he's helping me stand up to you. She stormed toward the door, then turned back, her eyes cold. Kevin says I should be documenting all of this. Your controlling behavior. How you're trying to isolate me from my family. It'll all be useful later. The door slammed behind her. I reached for my phone to call my lawyer. While explaining everything, he interrupted me with a question. Has Natalie's brother Kevin ever asked about the details of your business finances? My blood ran cold. I remembered my accountant mentioning strange calls from a potential investor, someone asking oddly specific questions about our corporate structure and profit margins. Someone who, in retrospect, sounded an awful lot like Kevin. I looked at the photo on my wall at the beach last summer, her head thrown back in laughter as I made some stupid joke. That felt like a lifetime ago now. The engagement ring I'd spent months picking out suddenly felt like a lead weight in my gut. I didn't know what to do. Call off the wedding? Try to wait out Kevin's influence? Every option felt wrong, like I was either giving up too easily or being naive and hoping things would magically go back to normal. And something told me this was just the beginning. So after Natalie's outburst at my office, her mom called me. This is the same person who once told Natalie she lucked out finding a hardworking guy like me. Well, seems like Kevin got to her too. The conversation went something like this. Her mom. Thomas, we need to talk about how you're treating Natalie. Me. What do you mean? She's the one who tried to change our prenup behind my back. Her mom. Kevin explained everything to us. How you're trying to control Natalie with money. How you want her to sign this unfair prenup. Me. Mrs. Wilson, that's not true at all. The original prenup was very fair. Natalie's the one who, her mom. Kevin says these prenups are just ways for rich men to keep women powerless. Did you know his first wife got nothing in their divorce? He's trying to protect Natalie from making the same mistakes. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Kevin's first wife got nothing because Kevin had nothing. He gambled away their savings and lost their house. How is that even comparable to my situation? But it got worse. Natalie's dad, who used to go fishing with me and treated me like a son, sent me this text. Very disappointed in you, Thomas. We thought you were different. Kevin showed us the prenup you're trying to force on Natalie, making her sign away all her rights. That's not what we raised our daughter for. I tried explaining that they had it backwards, that Natalie was the one who changed things without telling me, but they wouldn't listen. According to them, I was just proving Kevin right by refusing to share with their daughter. The next day, I got a group text from Natalie's cousins. These are people I've spent holidays with, helped move apartments, even hired one of them at one of my stores. The message said, "We always knew there was something off about you. Kevin was right. You're just another greedy businessman trying to take advantage of our family. Natalie deserves better." I replied, "You guys remember when Kevin borrowed $5,000 from your aunt for his foolproof business idea last year? Did he ever pay that back?" They left the group chat. I decided to do some digging. Turns out Kevin has been having family meetings without me. He's been telling everyone stories about his divorces, painting himself as the victim of gold-digging wives who took everything. Again, how do you take everything from someone who has nothing? He's convinced Natalie's whole family that all successful business owners are manipulative and will eventually abandon their wives. He's been using his own failed marriages as proof that Natalie needs to protect herself by taking as much as she can now. The worst part? Natalie seems to believe every word. She even posted on Facebook, "Sometimes people show their true colors when money is involved. So grateful for my brother's wisdom and guidance. Some men will never understand that marriage means sharing everything." I responded, "Does that include sharing the truth about changing legal documents behind your partner's back?" She blocked me. That was it for me. I decided to talk to Kevin face to face. I found out he was staying at some extended stay motel. I texted him asking to meet at a coffee shop nearby. I walk into the coffee shop, spotting Kevin at a corner table. He's already smirking as I approach, like he's won some game I didn't know we were playing. "Thanks for meeting me," I say, sliding into the seat across from him. Kevin leaned back, that smirk still plastered on his face. "Hey, future brother-in-law." He pauses, tilting his head. "Or maybe not. Way things are going." "Cut the act, Kevin." The words come out sharper than I intended. "I know what you've been doing." "Doing?" He spreads his hands innocently. "I'm just looking out for my baby sister. By telling her to change legal documents behind my back? By calling my office pretending to be an investor?" He doesn't even try to deny it. Just sits there, that insufferable smugness radiating from him. Can't blame a guy for doing his research. Someone's got to watch out for Natalie's interests. I take a deep breath, trying to keep my voice level. She had interests before you showed up. A career, independence, plans of her own. Now she's just parroting your divorce stories. I'm teaching her how the real world works. His voice hardens. You think you can just lock up all your assets and leave her with nothing? The original prenup was more than fair. You know that. You had your lawyer friend look at it. Something shifts in his expression, like a mask slipping. Fair? Please. He leans forward. I've seen your company's numbers. Natalie deserves at least 75% for putting up with you. These grocery stores, they're basically a gold mine. My coffee cup freezes halfway to my mouth. How did you see my company's numbers? He blinks, catching himself. Oh, Natalie might have left some papers lying around. So what's your real game here, Kevin? Using Natalie to get what you couldn't get from your own marriages? His face flushes red. You don't know anything about my marriages. Those women took everything. Took what? The gambling debts, the maxed out credit cards, the failed business ideas? His fist slams against the table, making our cups rattle. You think you're so much better than me because you got lucky with some stores? I could run circles around your business if I had the chance. Then he says it, the words that make everything click. Natalie already promised me a position in the company once she gets her share. I stare at him, the truth finally clear. So that's what this is about. You're not protecting Natalie. You're using her to get yourself a paycheck. She's family, he spits back. Family takes care of each other. Unlike you, trying to keep everything for yourself. The only person trying to take everything is you. Does Natalie know about your plan? His expression flickers. Natalie understands that I'll be a valuable asset to the company. I've got experience. Experience in what? Losing other people's money? His face darkens. You think you're so smart. Wait until Natalie tells everyone how you verbally abused her during this conversation. How you threatened her brother. How you're trying to isolate her from her family. I reach for my phone, placing it on the table. You mean this conversation? I've been recording. The color drains from his face, then floods back in an angry rush. He starts shouting about recording laws, but I can see the panic in his eyes. He stands up so quickly his chair scrapes against the floor. You've just made a huge mistake. Natalie will never believe you over me. He leans down. And once she gets her share of the business, you'll be begging me for a job. As he storms out, I'm already sending the recording to my lawyer. The next morning, my phone lights up with texts from Natalie. How dare you threaten my brother? Kevin was right about you all along. You're just jealous because he understands business better than you. I don't respond, just forward them to my lawyer and wait for what comes next. The day after, Natalie showed up at my house unannounced. She still had her key and just walked in while I was working from home. The moment I saw her face, I knew this wasn't going to be a discussion. She was beyond angry about me recording her brother. But what struck me most was how she seemed like a completely different person from the woman I'd fallen in love with. I tried showing her the recording of Kevin admitting his plans for a cushy job in my company, but she refused to even listen. It was like watching someone in denial about a basic truth. The more evidence I presented, the harder she fought against it. Her face went through this range of emotions when I played it anyway. When I brought up the security footage of Kevin going through my office and the business documents she'd been sending him, she turned it around on me. Suddenly, I was the bad guy for having security cameras in my own office. The fact that they were stealing private business documents didn't matter to her. In her mind, being engaged meant everything I owned was already partly hers. The most heartbreaking moment was when we talked about how she'd changed since Kevin came back into her life. Before him, she'd never shown any interest in running grocery stores or understanding business operations. But now, she was claiming she deserved 75% of everything because of her emotional contribution. It wasn't even her talking anymore. Every sentence started with, Kevin says. She'd lost her own voice completely. She started showing me texts about divorce lawyers before we were even married. She'd been planning our divorce while we were still planning our wedding. The woman I'd trusted enough to propose to was actively plotting how to take my business apart. She didn't even seem to understand why this was wrong. In her mind, it was just being smart about her future. She even said, I need to ensure I'm secured, as if I didn't give her security from the start. When she finally left, she wasn't the same person who'd walked in. The Natalie I knew and loved was gone, replaced by someone who saw our relationship as nothing more than a business opportunity. She'd chosen to believe Kevin's twisted view of marriage and business over everything we'd built together. That night, as her family bombarded me with messages about being controlling and having hidden cameras, I realized how much Natalie had changed. She had gone from someone who valued trust and independence to someone who thought it was okay to share confidential business information with my competitors just because we were engaged. The next morning, when I found out about her meeting with my competitor, I knew it was truly over. It wasn't just about ending an engagement anymore. It was about accepting that the person I loved had been completely transformed by her brother's toxic influence. The trust was gone, and without trust, there was nothing left to save. That night, I made my decision, although it hurt deeply. I knew there was no way for me to stick to this relationship. I thought that I needed someone who trusts me and doesn't get manipulated easily. If she's now listening to her brother and coming against me, who else would she be listening to when we get married? So I sent her a formal email, copied my lawyer, explaining that the wedding was canceled due to her attempts to modify the prenup without consent and her trying to share confidential business information with competitors. I also included the recording of Kevin admitting to their plan. 20 minutes after I sent it, my phone started exploding with notifications. Natalie called me crying, switching between begging me to reconsider and threatening to expose me as a controlling abuser. She kept saying stuff like, Kevin says you can't just cancel a wedding without agreeing on a settlement first, and you owe me compensation for emotional damage. I just kept quiet and recorded everything. My lawyer said that's the best thing to do when someone's showing their true colors. After some hours, Natalie texted me again. She decided to change tactics, apparently after venting about it to her brother. Fine, but I'm keeping the ring and I'll stay in the apartment until I'm ready to leave. You owe me that much. Like I owed her something after what she tried to pull. Then my mom called me. She was practically in tears. How could you do this to Natalie? She loves you. She just wanted to feel secure. I tried explaining about the prenup changes and the business documents, but Natalie had already worked her magic. According to her version, I was this controlling guy who wouldn't share with my future wife. My mom wouldn't listen at first. Natalie told us everything about how you're trying to leave her with nothing. Kevin explained to us how these prenups work. I had to go to my parents' house with my laptop and show them everything. The recordings, the modified prenup, all of it. My mom got real quiet after that. But Natalie wasn't done. Not even close. Remember that emergency credit card I gave her last year? The one that was supposed to be for actual emergencies? She went on the craziest shopping spree I've ever seen. 3 days. That's all it took for her to rack up almost $122,000 in charges. When I saw the charges coming in, I called her immediately. You know what she said? I deserve nice things after everything I've done for you. I've invested too much time in this relationship to walk away with nothing. When I reminded her the card was for emergencies, she laughed. Actually laughed? And said I should have been more specific about what counted as an emergency. That was it for me. While she was still on the call, I pulled up my banking app and canceled the card on the spot. No warning, no discussion, just done. She went dead silent for a second, then lost it, demanding to know how I could do this to her after everything. But at that point, I wasn't about to keep funding her definition of an emergency. My lawyer says we'll get the ring back. It's legally a conditional gift for marriage in our state. The apartment might take longer because tenant rights are complicated, even though she's not on the lease. Everything was a total mess. My head was spinning, and all I wanted was for this nightmare to end. But things took another turn a couple of weeks after the breakup, when Hannah, Natalie's sister, found Kevin's laptop while helping him with some job application. What she found instead was this detailed plan he'd written out, basically a step-by-step guide on how to scam me using Natalie. We're talking spreadsheets with timelines, planned divorce dates, even calculations of how much money he expected to get from my business. Hannah showed everything to their parents first. The documents proved Kevin had been planning this for months before he even moved back to town. He'd researched my business, figured out which locations were most profitable, even made notes about which family members he needed to convince first. Natalie was just his puppet, and he'd spent months pulling her strings. Hannah even found Kevin's text messages with some guy who turned out to be a fake lawyer. They were discussing how to manipulate Natalie, with gems like, she's too trusting, this will be easy. And once she's married, we can push for majority control. Kevin had even promised this guy a percentage of what they thought they'd get from my business. When Natalie finally saw all this evidence, something cracked. Hannah told me she spent 3 days locked in her room, reading through everything. All those business ideas Kevin claimed he lost to his ex-wives? Total lies. His failed marriages weren't because his wives took everything. They left because he kept trying to scam their families. Natalie showed up at my office last week. Security called me because she was crying in the parking lot. When I went down there, she looked terrible, like she hadn't slept in days. She kept saying she didn't know, and she was so sorry, and could we please talk about fixing this? I'll admit, for a second I felt bad for her. Then she said, I've learned my lesson. We can do the original prenup now. I won't ask for any of the business stuff. That's when I realized she still didn't get it. This wasn't about the prenup anymore. This was about trust and who she really was. I told her, Natalie, you didn't just try to take my business. You betrayed my trust, shared confidential information with competitors, maxed out my credit card, and tried to turn my whole family against me. Kevin might have manipulated you, but you chose to go along with it. She started crying harder, saying she'd been scared of ending up like Kevin's ex-wives, that he'd convinced her all successful men hide their assets, and she needed to strike first. She actually thought she was protecting herself by trying to scam me. The conversation ended with her saying something that showed she still didn't really understand. But I gave up so much for you. I deserve another chance. I just looked at her and asked, what exactly did you give up, Natalie? Your part-time job that you hated? The apartment you could barely afford? Or just the chance to scam someone else? She left after that, but kept texting me for days. Stuff like, we can start fresh, and I still love you, and I'll prove you can trust me again. Hannah told me Natalie's been telling everyone she's learned from her mistakes and grown as a person. It's been 2 weeks. The more she tries to pull me in, the more I feel disgusted by the idea of going back to her. The whole thing would almost be sad if Natalie wasn't still trying to work angles. Yesterday, she had her new lawyer contact mine about emotional damages from the broken engagement. The lawyer dropped her case as soon as my lawyer showed him Kevin's notebook and the evidence of their planned scam. Kevin's facing charges for corporate espionage. Turns out he tried to sell my business data to competitors. Natalie's not speaking to him anymore. But honestly, that doesn't change what she did. Maybe Kevin manipulated her, but she was a willing participant until she got caught. I've officially moved on. Changed all my business security protocols, upgraded all systems, and yeah, I'm a lot more careful about who gets close now. The whole thing taught me that sometimes people aren't changing into someone else. They're just revealing who they really are. Edit. Stop deeming me about Hannah. She's married and was just doing the right thing. And even if she's single, do you think I'll get back to dealing with her brother again? No thanks. Edit 2. For everyone asking, yes, I got the ring back through legal action. No, I'm not selling it. Edit 3. My lawyer says to stop commenting about the ongoing case against Kevin. But yeah, it's not looking good for him.